Welcome back to the Art Cloud, where we learn how to draw and design characters in our own fictional worlds. Today's video, I'm going to share my process for this illustration I'm working on for my story called the Diamond Odyssey. And I'm going to specifically share how I render this and how I color this. But before that, I want to show you how I started, how I went from thumbnails and got to this finished result here. So, all right, so to start off any illustration, what I'm forcing myself to do to get better at coming up with ideas is do more than at least 10 thumbnails. And that's because I want to really learn how to come up with ideas and experiment with those ideas, whether it be different camera angles, different composition techniques. I want to explore as many compositions as possible. And so that's what I'm doing here on this file in Clip Studio. I am drawing these tiny squares, and in each square or rectangle, I am drawing the basic composition for the story I'm trying to tell. And at the beginning, I wrote down on this file, on this canvas, that my story is about my three characters in this story and about their adventure. It's about their adventure, and they're embarking on this grand journey throughout this world. And so I really want to get a sense of adventure, maybe a little bit of mystery, and it's a journey that we're going on with these characters. And so that's what the focus is for the image I'm trying to create. I want to convey that mood and that story. And so, yeah, just coming up with different ideas as fast as possible. Not really as fast as possible, just as many as I can possibly think of. I ended up doing 20, I believe, and only I picked 3 out of those 20 that I wanted to explore a little bit more, as you can see right here, and trying to refine them a little bit more. While I was drawing these thumbnails, I wasn't really using any reference. I really wanted to just let my mind wander and try to do my best to tell the story how I imagine it and not really get influenced from like outside influences from reference. I do use references later, but at this early stage, I just want to be as creative as possible as I could possibly be. And once I decided on something, that's when I go and I use reference. So I'm still continuing to refine the thumbnails that I'm creating, and maybe I'm getting too detailed with them, but it all worked out in the end, and it just helped me understand and be clear on what my goal is with the illustration and where I want each element of the piece. I'm exploring where I want the foreground elements, the characters, and I'm exploring what I want the background and the sky to be. Also, in a little bit, I also do some color and add a little bit of color to create a color palette for this. Oh, yeah, right here. So, like I said, I didn't use reference to start. I'm only just now using reference to help me figure out how to draw this stuff and figure out my color palette. But yeah, I use pure reference for my reference, and then from there I'm just going in and I'm really refining the thumbnail and using reference to help me understand how certain things work, because I don't know what a desert looks like at the top of my head, right? I don't know what a cactus or a town, a desert town looks like. So that's what the reference is for, is to help me understand how to draw those particular elements and help me make this process as easy as possible for me. So my favorite part about this whole process is drawing the characters. And so I had a lot of fun refining the figures and messing with different poses and I'm really happy how they turned out towards the end, because I really did take the time to draw how I envisioned them and not just settled for like the first draft. I just kept working on it, especially for Eris, because as you can see, this was his first iteration in the drawing, but I drew his head differently because it was a little bit difficult for me to draw him looking up or down with his chin up, and so I just had him. I took the easy way out, and I drew him looking down toward the camera, which is fine. Maybe it makes it look a little bit better, but I was just more comfortable drawing it that way. And another thing I noticed when I was drawing this is that you should definitely have your character designed before you start illustrating something like this. But if you don't, it'll be alright. It'll be alright. It'll be good. I just went on the fly, and I was just trying to make this character look as interesting as possible. And so that's when I started really expanding upon his design that I previously created like a week or so ago. You can see it in that top left corner. That's where his previous design is. And I was like, let me go into more detail with this, because I feel like I'm not drawing this character the best he can be. And so same thing for Avi. I didn't even finish her design in the top left there, you see, but I just wanted to expand upon what I already drew and add what I needed to add to tell the story I want to tell, that they're on an adventure, that they're embarking on something new, and I'm inviting the viewer to join them and embark on this story with them, with these characters. So yeah, this is just a sketch phase. This is all about refining everything, and this is where I drew Avi's spear, and I really wanted to make sure it was symmetrical and it was looking right. And yeah, it's just all about refining all the details, all the elements in the scene. I eventually go and start drawing the background elements and make sure everything's good there. I knew from the very start that I wanted a town in the background, and so that's where that reference comes in again. I don't know what a desert town looks like, so I got reference from Pinterest to help me create this imaginary desert town, and it really helped a lot. I don't necessarily need a perspective ruler in this case, because it's just a freeform perspective kind of a thing. I wanted to just let it be that. It didn't have to be perfect, because it's not a focal point in the drawing. It's not that important to the image, so it was okay for me to do the perspective freehand and let it kind of be abstract. And so here I'm drawing the little lizard in this scene, and that's because I just wanted the scene to feel a little bit more alive, and I felt like I could do that with some type of creature or animal, and that's something I explored in the thumbnail stage. And so after everything is done, all my sketching is done, all of my refinement is done, and I have a clear idea on what is going on in the picture, that's when I start actually going in and doing line art. And this is really fun to do, because I get to start seeing everything to come together and look complete and finished. Even though there's no color yet, I can get an idea of what it will look like with color. And this is just like the next step toward making it look finished. So the line art was fun to do, just taking my time, having fun with it. And what I really liked about this process is exploring different line weights. So for the outer details of the character and their clothing, I would use a bigger brush size. So I would use the 4 pixel brush size, and then for the inner details of the character, I will go smaller and use a smaller brush size for the details. And that's because that's something I would do with a regular inking tool if I was drawing traditionally. So if I have a pen or a marker or whatever, I would use bigger pens and markers for the larger details or outlines of the characters, and I would go in with the smaller details with a smaller pen. And so I just want to emulate that in this drawing. But yeah, that's the overall process for this. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and get into color and share my progress with how I start rendering a piece like this, because if you're trying to draw a big illustration like this and it's your first time, it can be a little intimidating if you don't plan your image right and you don't understand the composition and the basic things. That's why it's so important for you to just understand the thumbnail and then just keep refining it until you get a good idea and you get a solid, clear story and image. So yeah, this whole process was fun. I'm glad I was able to record all this and share it with you so that hopefully you can learn from it. And so yeah, now I'm just gonna go over the coloring process a little bit more. All right, so now that I have explained my process from the beginning, let's start coloring this and rendering it. So I have everything separated into its own folder as far as the line art goes, and I'm going to do the same thing for the color. So I have the foreground elements, all the rocks in the foreground, and that little lizard. That was fun to draw. Then I have the main focal point of the image, two characters, Eamon and Avi. The midground and the background. And so now what I'm going to start doing is creating layers for each folder for the color. And one reason why I'm leaving the background here, I'm going to draw these buildings in the background here that I have in my sketch here. I'm going to draw these, but what I'm going to do, instead of using lines to draw them, I'm going to use just basic shapes of color to express those background elements. So everything that's in the background, like the stars and the comets going past the characters, I'm going to use basic shapes to paint those elements in, because those elements aren't the most important parts of the piece. So yeah, let me just get started coloring this. So I'm going to turn off all the sketch work, and I'm going to pull up my reference on the side so I can know what kind of color scheme I'm going for. I want it to be placed at night, and I really like this picture, so I want to kind of do the same thing for my piece here. But yeah, this is my reference board. I'm using Pure Reference, a cool app to gather reference with. And during those early stages of me making thumbnails, I was using this to come up with ideas and to refine my sketch to get clear on what I actually wanted. And then I also have some illustrations from some of my favorite artists to help me draw this piece. So I'm going to put this on the other screen, but just to let you know, I'm using reference to color this, and it's going to be a lot easier for me to view the reference if I have it on a separate screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my background layer, and under the lines of my character Eris, I'm going to create a new layer, and this is going to be my color layer for the background. And it's going to establish the whole mood for the image. And like I said, I want some type of purple night sky looking color scheme. Very cool color scheme I want. So I'm just going to fill this in like this. And if I'm looking at my reference, like the sky is a little bit darker than that, so I'm going to color it a little bit darker actually. But now I can't see great. I'll just leave it like that for now. Fine, I'll make it darker if I need to later. And first thing I want to start adding just the flat colors on every layer for each element. So I'm already in the background layer, so let's just start with Air's and his colors. To save time, I'm just going to use one layer for all my colors, creating this mask I can use to color this as fast as possible. Make it easier to see with the background. I can go back. That's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and start adding like gradients for the background. Start coloring in the light. That's a little bit easier for me to see the characters that I'm coloring. The main goal of this illustration is to get that feeling of adventure and embarking on a new journey. And so I really want to emphasize that with the characters and just a scene. That's why I wanted to draw an environment that they're in and not just a couple of characters standing somewhere in space. I want them to be in an actual setting, and that setting should tell the story or help tell the story that I'm trying to tell. It's really fun to see my improvement and learn how I can combine line art and painting at the same time. What I see some of my favorite artists do is they'll do their line art. Some of my favorite artists will do line art for the whole entire piece, and some artists will only draw the characters line art and then the background is painted. And so that's what I'm going for in this drawing, is line art for my characters and then a painted background. You can get a lot more done, I feel like, if you do it that way. Either way, you can make a good illustration. I just really like images where the character or the artist use line art for their characters and then they painted the backgrounds. And so that's why I want to continue to study how to paint and render backgrounds and stuff like that, so that I can combine painting and line art at the same time. One of my favorite artists that does that is Tony Valente, the creator of Radiant. Very good at doing that. So I want to implement that into my own process and learn how to do that for myself. But yeah, I'm just laying down the flat colors. I'll be back once I have laid out all the basic flats that I need to for each character and each section of my environment. So see you then. The process is just all about having fun, taking your time. This illustration is just getting started. I feel like I'm only 50% done, and I did a lot of work to get here. So I want to make it the best that I can and continue to do this consistently with every drawing I make. But yeah, I'm gonna lay down all the basic flat colors for each element of this image. All right, so now that I got the flat colors down for each layer, each element of the piece, now I'm gonna go in and start actually adding the individual colors and start shading it and lighting it. This is my favorite part because this is where you start seeing everything come together and fit. But the first thing I want to work on is actually the background. And you can see here in my thumbnail image that I actually started laying out some color that I could use for this piece, and this is what I'm going off of. And so what I want to do with this background is I want to actually add that really saturated blue in the background to brighten the background up, make it a little bit more saturated. So that's what I'm going to do really quick. I like starting with the background because if you start with the background, you know what the lighting scheme is already. You know what is needed as far as the colors go when you actually go in and light the color, the characters and everything else. So I like these kind of like abstract shapes. Looking up at the sky at night, really cool. I'm liking that. I'm just doing this all on one layer. I like keeping it simple, like I said, so I'm going to continue to do it that way. But I do want to make this more saturated, and so edit Tonal correction, saturation, and just boost the saturation up a little bit more. Just a tiny bit. Yep, that's good. That's fine. And then I can continue from there. So I can probably add a little bit more of that color up here. I'm using this oil paintbrush, flat oil brush, Clip Studio. Add these streaks of color. Make it look cool. I have to reselect that color. There we go. Nice, I like that. I'm also gonna go back up here and grab that dark purple color and use the airbrush to do some shading like this. And then I can also add some stars, individual speckles of stars with this a droplet brush. I'll do just like a white color like this. Nice. Imitate the reference, not imitate, just make this feel like the reference that I have here on screen. I want to emulate that in this piece. So I'm liking this so far. Now I'm going to start actually coloring the characters because I think I have enough information as far as the light goes to start coloring these characters effectively. But before that, I actually want to start coloring the rocks and the sand and everything in the desert. So I'm going to go to my mid-ground color layer. Like I said, I have everything on one layer, and so to make it easy to color and so that I don't go off out of the lines and stuff, I can just lock the transparency of the layer. So lock transparent pixels up here, top right, or wherever you have your setting at. So lock the layer, and now I can't draw outside that layer. Makes it super easy to color. And now I'm gonna start coloring these individual elements like the rocks and the grass and stuff. I'm going to use my reference as best I can for this. I really like this one here because the sand has more of like a warm color and then the cooler shadows. I kind of want to implement that because with this one up here is more cool and it looks otherworldly, and I want to get that sense of a desert. So I'm going to try and add this warm tone back to the sand and while I color it. So I think the most important part when you're drawing something this big is to make sure that you're enjoying the process and having fun during the process, because it can take a while for you to see your imagined result. Like you might not know exactly how you're going to get there, but you know this is what you want it to eventually become. This is a good example of cool light, warm shadow. So in my foreground here, I have these cooler looking rocks. I wonder what would happen if I changed them to a warmer tone color. This, and maybe, oh, that color's too bright. But maybe a warmer color, or less saturated, a little bit warmer. And it's locked, so I can just color it all in like this. This is all a learning process for me as well, but I do like the warmer tone of the rock. The first time you actually try to draw something really big, the first time, it can be intimidating to even start drawing something this big or plan it out even. So that's why it's important to draw a lot of thumbnails so that the idea you come up with, you're confident in. Because if you try and use your first idea, might not be the best idea that you can come up with, and then you'll end up giving up on it because that first idea was not your best idea, and you probably had something better you could have drawn, but you probably gave up too early. So I encourage you to keep drawing those thumbnails and lean into the difficulty, because it is difficult to come up with a lot of ideas. When I was drawing my thumbnails, didn't use reference, I just try to come up with ideas from my head. And then once I got the ideas out and I refined the ideas, that's when I used reference to help me figure out my idea. So I didn't use reference till like later in the process, because I just wanted to be creative, trying to come up with something cool, and then refine the idea that I had with my reference. If you can clearly establish like different planes of the environment, like foreground, midground, background, then it'll be a lot easier to tell your story, and you can use that the foreground elements and stuff for composition purposes. What color should I make the lizard? Maybe like a red color. Deep little red desert lizard looking thing. Nice. This is my first time drawing an animal in one of my drawings. I definitely want to try and do that a little bit more. Study and draw more animals, because this is really fun. This is just a fun idea I had to draw a lizard in the piece, to make the world feel a little bit more alive. And that's the same thing, same reason why I wanted to incorporate some type of city in the background, to make the world that these characters are embarking in, or make the world look and feel alive, instead of just characters standing around in a blank environment. So hopefully these elements make the piece a little bit more interesting, like the lizard down here and the city in the background. So now my favorite part, I get to color in the characters. The hardest part about this is I haven't really established a color for these characters, so I'm kind of doing it on the fly for this illustration. But I'm thinking for Eamon, this character here, his color scheme will be black and gold, but the color needs to reflect his environment as well. So let's see, this is his color mask. I have it locked. Like I said, I want it to be black and gold. So maybe I do like more of a purple, cool purple tone of this dark gray color. Something like that. Because what I want to do is these emblems here on his clothing, I want to go to the line art layer, lock that layer, and grab the yellow color I was talking about, that golden color, and I want to color in these elements to make them look gold like this. Nice. So that's what I'm gonna do for all the elements there, all these little emblem and insignia type of elements, and that looks really cool. I like that. What else can I add? Interesting. That's why if you're going into this, definitely make your color palette before you do this for your characters, so it's easier for you to color your characters in. But when I was drawing this, I actually kind of redesigned him a little bit. I gave his outfit more detail to fit the character and the mood I wanted for him. All right, so I'm at a good point in the drawing, and I just want to share what's going on right now. So at this point, I'm just adding the shading and going from background to foreground. I started in the background, started rendering everything in the background, and then I'm moving forward to everything in the foreground, so that the last thing I pretty much render is these characters in the middle ground. And yeah, just having fun. Right now what I'm doing is I'm adding all the shadows to the foreground using this color on a multiply layer, and it's coming in handy. depending on what kind of style you want for your drawing and how you render, you can use these different blending modes, different layer modes for different techniques. I'm using multiply for my shading, but of course you can use whatever you want, or you can just use no layer, no multiply layers or anything like that. But yeah, I'm just having fun. I'm making some great progress, and I'm liking how it's turning out so far. I'm getting the vibe I want from it, and I'm getting that energy I want from it. And so this last little bit of this drawing is just me finishing it up, rendering everything, adding details, and making sure everything looks good. And so really quick, I just want to show you how I separated the background elements from the middle ground elements. So if you look over here on the right, where my layers are, I have my background layer here, and this is where I colored everything, right, and rendered everything. And what I did to get this effect in between right there, that glow right there in between the midground and the background, is I added that overlay layer with a more purplish, a light purple color to separate the planes of the illustration, so we have a different depth of field to it. And so all you have to do that is just create a new layer, put it in between the middle ground layer and that foreground layer, or the background layer, and then you can do something like that. And if I want to, I can go into more depth, and I can create a new layer, and I can add like this white, maybe fog or something like that. That's something I like to add sometimes, so let's see what that looks like. Maybe not in this illustration because it's nighttime, but you can definitely experiment with that. And I probably will go and do something with this, but it probably won't be white, so maybe I can do a different color. Maybe I can do like a purple or something on a different layer mode, but something to separate it even more, separate that midground from background. Maybe I need a blue color. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks good too, like that. And instead of the overlay being on the bottom, I put it over the top of that layer. So now it gives out that glow. Nice, I like that. Oh yeah, let's get it. This is fire. So this is about having fun, experimenting, and I'm really just enjoying this whole process, because this is all a learning process for me. This year I really want to create more finished illustrations that tell this story that I have in my head and get it out and share it with people online and on my YouTube channel. And hopefully I can help you do create artwork that you enjoy. And that's the whole point of me making this video, is to help you with your process. And so yeah, just adding that little bit of glow right there just makes it even stand out a lot more. It might be a little too much, so I can erase parts of it, but overall that looks amazing. I'm happy with how that's coming out, and I could definitely probably go into more detail with this character's face, but for now this is fine. I want to just move on to this area of the drawing and finish up his characters and the foreground elements up here, all this. So yeah, I'm gonna finish this up today. Probably not in this video, but hopefully you were able to learn something about my process and learn something about how you can implement what I was showing you and what I was drawing into your own process. So thank you for watching. Yeah, and peace. I'll see you next week.